Today's video is brought to you by our sponsor, EvolvePCs. Guys, I know we're on multiple platforms. Some of you are probably on console. I used to be a console player for the longest time and finally made the jump to PC. Now, PCs aren't cheap, which is why we partnered with Evolve. They've got PC builds for just about any budget. They're flexible on financing, and you still have the ability to personalize your PC with all kinds of things, even your favorite anime waifus. Evolve is also very fast with their express system, having all your PC parts in stock. Just order and ship instantly. And the beautiful thing about Evolve is that it's created by gamers. Our Destiny 1 veterans will be very familiar with Triple Rec, as he's actually the owner of the company, which is why he goes above and beyond getting us those high quality builds. Fellas, if you're interested and you're just on the edge right now, you can always join Evolve's Discord just to check things out. And if you're looking to actually lock in a PC and you want to support the channel, use code Aztecross. Again, big shout out to Evolve for sponsoring today's video. What is Season 17's meta gonna be? Well, we think that primary weapons are gonna be front and center, considering the special ammo changes. Essentially, special ammo economy inside of Crucible is about to get a hefty nerf. It's actually making some of us wonder, are we actually in fact going back to a double primary meta? Now, I don't know if that's actually going to be the case, but I do want to bring up two primary weapons that are positioned very nicely for next season. One is the BXR-55 Battler, such a unique weapon and essentially the battle rifle in Destiny form. The other is the SMG Huckleberry. Now, the reason why both of these are looking very, very juicy is because we're actually getting buffs individually for both of these. Number one, BXR is actually considered a lightweight pulse rifle. Bungie actually confirmed this. Even though it is a legacy PR-55 frame, it's still considered a lightweight, thus meaning the lightweight pulse rifle buff will be affecting BXR-55 quite nicely. We're talking like a range bump, a bump there in its damage. And long story short, what used to require 8 crits in order to secure that TTK value of 0.87 seconds will now only require 6 crits in 2 body, at least on 5 resilience or less. Needless to say, BXR is going to be a lot more forgiving. And out of all the lightweight pulse rifles, and I know we just recently reviewed the AUGMA PR6, which is still a very good pulse rifle, but the BXR really just possesses the ability to dominate in those 1v1s. And that's partly due to the fact that the weapon is not only good when you aim down sights, but it's even nastier when you're shooting from the hip, thus really embodying the identity of the battle rifle. Now, the other weapon is, of course, the Huckleberry. Now, the Huckleberry, it's getting some fine tuning, having its zoom value raised from 13 to now 15. Now, this is a ginormous bump, but as the other changes throughout the sandbox that is coming next week that is looking to make Huckleberry even better. Number one, other SMGs are getting a nerf. Multi-Mac, Shayura's Wrath, both are getting a nerf there in the range, and Multi-Mac especially. And number two, with the inclusion of airborne effectiveness, Huckleberry will finally be able to tackle that one issue it has always had, and that is its piss poor in-air accuracy. Now, not out of fault of its own, it's just because it's an exotic and we couldn't slot things like Icarus. But with airborne effectiveness being a stat next season, you will essentially be able to have good airborne accuracy even with your exotic. And when you pair it with certain exotics like Peacekeepers, this actually tacks on passively airborne effectiveness like plus 40 to submachine guns. And if submachine guns by default should be sitting somewhere around 0 to 30, if Huckleberry's on the high end, we're talking pretty juicy airborne effectiveness with Huckleberry, meaning you'll be able to actually take to the air effectively and still land your shots. Now, Huckleberry is a monster in its own self. Not only are you dealing with an SMG that amps its rate of fire the longer you hold down the trigger, but simultaneously, it has pre-nerf rampage values, at least inside of PvE, right? Amping from 20% at 1 stack, 41% at 2 stacks, and 66% at 3 stacks. Now, what makes it disgusting inside of PvP is actually 2 things. That rate of fire starts off for the first 10 shots shooting at 750 rounds per minute. That amps up somewhere between 750 and 900 rounds per minute for the next 12 shots, and for the final 8, it maxes out at 900 rounds per minute. Needless to say, our time to kill value here for the Huckleberry starts off at 0.67 and ramps down to 0.53. That's fast, fellas. And if you got the exotic catalyst, every single kill will reload the entire magazine. The only problem with Huckleberry is you'll find yourself reloading quite a bit if you're not actually getting kills. But if you can get those kills and you can lock it in, Huckleberry is incredible at snagging those multi-kills. And with it getting this range bump, it's gonna go from a 14.5 meter damage fall off range to around 17, maybe 17.5 meters, which is still an impressive jump there in range. And those are like my 2 main complaints with Huckleberry. A, its in-air accuracy is so poor that you burn a lot of your shots due to them just missing. And B, when opponents get outside of that 14-meter range, dude, your bullets just start whiffing. With this change though, the weapon is not only going to be able to maintain full damage at that 17-meter range, but it's also going to remain sticky, which is equally as important. Shots are actually going to register, and proccing that ride the bull, increasing that rate of fire, getting those rampage stacks and those multi-kills should be something much easier to accomplish in the next sandbox. This combo, guys, actually worked out well. We actually ended up using Peacekeepers with it, and I wanted to see how double primaries are working currently, even with the special ammo that we're dealing with. People running around with special weapons still, like their primaries, but I was pleasantly surprised with how good this was actually working. And it was because BXR does such a good job of countering everything at long range to mid range, and Huckleberry eats everything up close. There's going to be a lot of people in the next sandbox that is going to have their heads cut off when they realize they shoot their special weapons and they're like, yo, I don't have this big wad of special with me at all times. And you're going to be surprised how many people you're probably going to kill by simply rocking double primaries. And again, when you rock double primaries, you starve the opposing team from getting any special ammo, even if they kill you. Now, something to keep in mind about the BXR and what the God roll is. Remember, fellas, next week, pulse rifles are actually getting their range increase across the board. So even like the most mediocre rolled pulse rifle will still have decent range, or at least better range. However, on the high end, damage fall off far distance is actually going to be limited to 40 meters, regardless of the range stat. Now, I still think that rangefinder will still extend the range of the BXR, even past that 40 meters. It's probably going to be somewhere around like 43 meters. But understand, going for that super max range roll isn't as important if you plan on aiming down sights. Now, obviously, shooting from the hip, having max range or very high range is obviously beneficial because you're no longer taking advantage of that zoom multiplier, which in BXR's case is 20. But I will say this, we still don't really know what the next 3.0 subclass is, but both of them are actually positioned, whether it's arc or solar, to work really well with our melee base abilities. And guys, if you have not used blunt execution rounds, it's actually a very fun perk. Getting a single melee hit off will result in your next burst being substantially increased by 100% inside of PvP. I was actually running around with Bottom Tree Striker, getting melee kills, and then turning around getting the easy 2 bursts on my next target. So like I mentioned in the past, I think perpetual motion, blunt execution rounds is a fantastic trait combination. Snapshot rangefinder is still really, really good. And then of course you have options like kill clip, perpetual motion. You got Eye of the Storm that you can throw in there. But again, blunt execution rounds is such an interesting one, right? Imagine if it's easier to land mini hammer kills or celestial fire hits or knives next season if it's Solar 3.0. Dude, blunt execution rounds, easy 2 bursts all day long. So guys, that is the BXR-55 and Huckleberry. I wanted to bring these two options up because I think a lot of people have forgotten about both of these weapons. They're both primaries. So I know for most of my Crucible apes, that just goes right over your head. But next season, which is next week, I think both of these weapons are going to be top contenders in our PvP sandbox meta. Well, fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching. And as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.